Welcome to the Tuesday Nights Freedom for Targeted Individuals.org podcast. I'm your moderator, Ella. And one thing I have to say off the bat is that free conference call has changed my number, so please take note of it. You can join us live, which I encourage people to do every Tuesday and Thursday beginning at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time by calling 515-606-5187. And I'll repeat it again because it's a new number. And the date is April 2nd, 2019. So this is the current number we are using from now on, 515-606-5187, and entering the ID 400014#. So the ID number will remain the same, just so you know. And if you want to hear playback recordings, I now found out how people can hear some of the recordings that aren't posted on YouTube. The playback number is 515-606-5211, and that will begin tomorrow, April 3rd. It was like an April Fool's joke, but it wasn't a joke, unfortunately. So this is a solution, educational, activism-based podcast, but the views and opinions of my guests and participants are not necessarily my own personal views and opinions. My goal is that everyone can obtain something out of tonight, especially a feeling of empowerment. If you are new to the call, please stay on, and we will get you some support, some helpful links and websites, and connect you with others. You can also visit our website, freedomfortargetedindividuals.org. And also, if you're new and you want some suggestions, you can email me at fftiorg@gmail.com, fftiorg@gmail.com, tiangel2016@gmail.com works somewhat, so that I still have that available. Tonight we have a very interesting and kind guest. It's someone I've gotten to know over the months, and I'm very happy to have him here so he can share his testimony and his experience from being a targeted individual. So his name is Brian. And Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you, and maybe you can tell everybody a little bit about your background.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Ella, for the opportunity to speak here tonight. I'd like to thank each and every person that is on this call. Also, I'd like to say thank you to you, and I think we all have a lot in common. My name is Brian Hanson. I'm originally from Indiana. I had what you would call a fairly different life. I'll just say different. And as a young man, I was just a pretty typical fellow. I liked to hunt and fish and swim, and I was just one of those young guys that I didn't know what it meant to stay inside. I was always outside. I liked to camp and boat and ski, and I just done everything anybody would do as a young man. My family wasn't very well off, but at the same time, we didn't starve, but, those kind of things never hurt me any. I always look forward to later on, as I, got older, to be able to find my place in life, which I eventually did. I graduated from high school in the early 70s and from Indiana, but I won't mention the city. I decided that since I didn't have any money to go to college, I decided that I would join the military. And so I joined the United States Navy in 1972, right out of high school. I went to boot camp, and that was a new experience. And I was a recruit chief petty officer of my company. That means I was the person that carried the saber and marched my company from place to place. I left boot camp and went to the Hospital Corps School in San Diego, California, where I graduated with honors and began to work in the largest naval hospital in the world at that time, Balboa Naval Hospital. I worked there for about 6 months, and the Navy contacted me and asked me if I'd be willing to go to what they call an advanced school. I want to also say this so people can have the proper perspective of the time frame, is that this was still during the time of the Vietnam conflict. So even though I was, stateside, I was still considered a Vietnam-era veteran, though I did not serve in Vietnam. I accepted their, request to go to what they call the C school. I became an ears, nose, and throat surgical and clinical technician. After graduating from that school, I left and went to a place called Camp Pendleton, California. It's a Marine Corps base, and as most people know, that the United States Navy supplies all the medical personnel for the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps does not have any medical personnel at all. I reported there they had a brand new $600 million hospital that was built because we had a lot of boys coming home that had a lot of horrible injuries, and we also had 18,500 Vietnamese refugees in a tent city there. So I stayed very, very busy, and I learned a lot. I worked with some of the best surgeons a guy could ever ask for, and absolutely learned more than you can ever imagine. I had planned on doing a full 20 years with the United States Navy, but unfortunately fate intervened, and I was involved in a very serious accident. And after I recuperated and got out of the hospital, I went back to work. I felt okay, but I told my chief I wanted to re-up. So we all had a mailbox. I got a letter from him one day. It said, "Hey, can you come to my office?" I went down there, and he says, "Got some bad news for you, Brian." And I said, "What's that?" He says, "We're going to have to go in front of the medical board to get that re-enlistment." So I went in front of the medical board, and they shot my re-enlistment down, so I had to figure out what I was going to do with my life after that. So I left the Navy in 1976. During the time before that, what I did was I researched all the different agencies that I could work for and that I could qualify for, and applied for a civil service exam and for the Department of Justice, the Federal Bureau of Prisons. So I took their exam and passed it with flying colors, and left to go to work there at a maximum security prison in Indiana. It was a federal prison. I worked in the hospital initially, and basically the doctor was never around, so whatever emergency you had or whatever went on, you just had to handle it, which I did. During this time, in that first year I worked there, I thought, wow, I want to go to college. I want to go to college because I had the GI Bill now that could back me up. So I didn't get that opportunity because I was so busy all the time. So I left the Bureau of Prisons and went with another agency that allowed me to go to college. So I started college, and I was doing really well. I was making all those good A's and B's that you got to make in order to, maybe find a job later down the line, when a friend of mine who still worked for the Bureau called me up and says, "Hey, man, everything's changed." He said they're starting all these schools because they can't get anybody to come in, and you got to come back. I said, well, I told him, I said, I wouldn't come back unless I can be guaranteed the school I want. And so he told me the schools, and one of the ones I wanted was safety and occupational health. And the Bureau set their own schools up because it was very difficult to get people to come out of college into that environment. It was a very, very, very tough environment. And it's one of those situations where if you've never been inside or know what it's like to be inside of a place like that, it's very, very, very difficult. Well, anyway, they guaranteed me that, so I come back and I started the school. And it was very intensive, very, very intensive. And I really enjoyed it, and I graduated with honors again, and I became a safety manager for the Federal Bureau of Prisons. I started out as an assistant, and it was during this time that I met the lady that I was going to marry. And I never was much of a churchgoer, and I'm not going to preach to anybody here tonight, don't get me wrong. I just never was. I never was raised that way. There was 5 children in my family. None of us ever went to church, except my oldest sister occasionally would go, and I was the youngest of 5. I had my 2 oldest siblings were girls, and then my brother, and then a sister, and then me. And I met this lady, and she was a big churchgoer, and she kept trying to get me through the door, and I kept telling her no. I said I might catch on fire. I was just aggravating her. But eventually, we began to, go to church together, and then we got married, and we had 3 children. I had my oldest was a daughter, and then 2 sons. It was during this time that I was working and just doing my everyday thing, and as time went on, something very strange happened to me. I come home one day, and she told me that she didn't believe in Christianity anymore. And I said, okay, what do you believe in? She goes, I'm going to become a Muslim. I said, you're going to become a Muslim? I said, okay. I thought she was just going through a phase, and she never acted like that. She was a very smart woman. She was a registered nurse. She was, salutatorian of her high school class and valedictorian of her, graduated summa cum laude from nursing school. And she was very bright, very tall. She was 6'2", and she was just an absolutely beautiful woman. And I treated her with the utmost respect and dignity. At least I thought I did. And so she became a Muslim and divorced me. So I didn't know what to do about that at first. And the strange part of the story is that as I moved back to a different place with the Bureau, she moved back to Kentucky. And we had our divorce decree set up. And one day I called, and I'll never forget the day. It was the 18th of December. And it was my turn to have the children for Christmas. I had the children in the summer. She had them all during the school year. It was a good arrangement, but it was a real problem because I still went to church and the Christian faith, and she now was a Muslim, and she'd changed my children's names. She changed my oldest daughter's name to Khadijah, my middle son to Ali, and my youngest son to Jamil. And
can you speak up just a little bit? It's getting a little quiet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Can you hear me now?
You sound great, yes.
Okay, thank you. I apologize for that. And so I called on that day and to get my children and never got an answer. And I kept trying to find her and trying to find her. I didn't go to the police yet. I kept trying to find my children, couldn't find them. And all of a sudden, she shows up. And she says, I can't find the children. Something's wrong. And so then we called the law enforcement. And then 3 days later, she disappears. Well, the FBI got involved. So then the FBI comes to me and says, well, where's your wife? And that wasn't my wife, it was my ex-wife. She goes, where's your ex-wife at? And I said, well, how do I know? I said, I'm the one that called you. And the guy sort of gave me this feeling like, yeah, right. Well, here I am working for the Department of Justice, doing my job, and this guy's asking me, and I'm feeling like he's looking at me like I had something to do with the disappearance of my children. So, to make a long story short, in the end, they found out that it wasn't me. And that particular scenario there, it was took me 4 years to find them. I found them in Karachi, Pakistan. And pretty much their lives had been ruined. They had been, I want people to know this tonight. I'm not here tonight trashing the Islamic religion. I'm telling a story about what happened to my children. All I have is what the truth was behind that particular situation. And to get to know me a little bit, and this is part of my life, and this is what I've been through, it well prepared me, trust me, for being a TI. And working inside of those prisons also very much so prepared me for the harassment and stuff I've been through. Well, anyway, I finally found them and got them home. She faced 9 years in prison. I won't get into what really happened with her. My children are now not Muslim. They're all Christian. That should tell you something. My oldest daughter's married to a minister, a very successful minister, and a very good man. And I have 4 grandchildren. And my second son, who has been probably the most difficult for him. I about lost him in Afghanistan in 2004. Well, after she divorced me, I did meet another lady. And I thought, well, I'll try one more time at this because it wasn't my fault. I didn't want a divorce. But I married again after quite a bit of time, at least, 3 or 4 years I waited, and had 2 other children, so I have a total of 5 children. And it was during the time that I married that lady that my children disappeared, and so she went through all that with me, and like anything else, she got tired of it, and she left, and I never married again. And that's been 22 years ago. I've been as I am for 22 years. But the end result of that, my son, who was almost killed in Afghanistan, and my youngest son had his best friend who never really had a family, moved in with us, and then him and 3 other of his friends, when he went over to Afghanistan, all 4 of them were killed by a roadside bomb. And I done the eulogy at his funeral. That's pretty much a quick synopsis of my life. I had some very interesting things that I will go back and touch on that I used to do. I used to be a train rider. When I was a young guy, I used to jump and ride trains with hobos, and I used to do stupid stuff like that. And then when I was in California at the Marine Corps base, President Nixon would always come to our clinic. He always had a nasal problem, so he would come to our clinic. And I always had the pleasure of being the one to, if I was in clinic at that time and not surgery, I would be allowed. I was a senior guy in my division, so as far as surgical and clinical tech, and he'd come in. And the funny story about him, he's a lot taller than he looks. He's about 6'2". And he'd come in one day, and he'd sit in the chair in there, because all the Secret Service agents are there. Everybody's running around, trying to, make him comfortable. And can I get you anything, Mr. President? Can I do this for you, Mr. President? I just looked at him and said, well, how you doing today, Mr. President? And he goes, well, I'm not president anymore. And I looked at him and I said, you'll always be my president, sir. And he stuck out his hand and shook my hand. And that was the end of that conversation. But I always have that particular memory. Another strange memory I have about myself, so it gives you, I told you what I've told you, but when I was small, my oldest sister, was married to a school teacher, and my second sister, she passed away last week, and she was a beautiful woman. She had Alzheimer's, but she was married to a career military officer, and he come from what I consider a very distinguished family. His father was a CIA operative over in the Asian division, and the oldest boy, who my sister was married to, like I said, was a career officer, and he had a brother who was he was also an officer, but he got out and became a multimillionaire in the construction industry, and the youngest of the three boys was a Pulitzer Prize winning author. You can find, if you ever can find the book, The Kansas City Massacre, you'll know who this gentleman is. He is a fabulous writer. So that's a little bit about some of the things in my life that really is about me. But I think really what I'm here for tonight is to talk about being a targeted individual. There's really not a lot that I can say about my situation right now. I can tell you how it started. I can tell you I was told that I was set up. I have some observations that I think people might like to hear, I would think. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. But I believe there are 4 types of targeted individuals. I believe the first type of targeted individual that you have is judicial in nature. And the second is extrajudicial in nature. And the third would be whistleblower. And the fourth would be targets of opportunity. And I think that's where a lot of the women that are targeted, because I believe that the statistics are right, that 70% of the targets are women. And maybe they look at them as a target of opportunity. I do not know if that's correct, but it's just an observation. I say judicial because really, when you first start seeing this, and we know that if the Constitution says we have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that anything that these people do to us is a violation of not only our civil rights, but is a hate crime. And it's, in that regard, it's not judicial as far as, how do I want to say this? It's not judicial as far as the way I see it. They try to make it that way. We feel it's that way. We feel like we're being investigated because we're followed everywhere. We have our car broken into, our home broken into. Who's doing this? Who would do that? That's the way I seen it because of where I came from and the background. I'm a graduate of the Federal Law Enforcement Academy out of Benton, Georgia, so I understand, that when what was said to me and why it was said to me and how this all started for me. And at first, the targeting was just completely strange to me. I can tell you the very first thing. By the way, tomorrow will begin my 3rd year as a targeted individual on the 3rd of April. It was probably before that, but the first strange thing that ever happened to me, I have a witness to, oddly enough. Most of the time when you have something happen to you as a target, you don't have any witnesses unless you take pictures or unless you have recordings. I'm a big-time believer in carrying a small handheld recorder and recording conversations. Anyway, I found a really nice condominium-type place, and it was all remodeled, and I wanted to either purchase it or rent it. So I told my brother that I was going down to take a look at it, and he couldn't go with me at that time. So I go down, and I fill out an application, and I do all the things that everybody's supposed to do, check my background. And so then when I get back home, I call my brother. I said, hey, John, you want to come down tomorrow and take a look at this? He goes, how about Wednesday? I said, well, how about Friday? So we went down on a Friday, and on the way down, my phone rang, and it was this gentleman. And he said to me, he said, Mr. Wilkes. I said, yes, sir. He said, ran everything on you. He said, you come out squeaky clean. I said, well, I knew I would, but I just wanted you to be the prover of it. And he said, bring the money down a week from today, and she's yours. I said, to rent or buy? He goes, oh, rent, because I ain't going to sell it yet. I said, we'll talk about that later. So my brother said, well, I'll come with you. I said, great. So we get in the car the following Friday. I have all the money that I need to get into the place. I've got my stuff already in storage, and, I'm ready to go. So on the way down, my brother says, hey, call that guy. Tell him you're in town, and we'll drop by, get the keys, you pay him the money, and we'll go out to eat. And I said, sure. So I call him on the phone, and I said, he answers. He goes, hello. And I said, yes. And I call him by name, which I won't mention on the phone. I said, this is Brian Hanson. He goes, who? I said, Brian Hanson. He goes, I've never heard of a Brian Hanson. I laughed. I said, I beg your pardon. He goes, I've never heard of a Brian Hanson. I said, I laughed. I said, okay. I said, you're pulling my leg, right? He goes, no, sir. I've never heard of you in my life. I said, you've never heard of me in my life. I said, you're being serious, aren't you? He said, yes, I'm being serious. I've never heard of you in my life. That was the end of that conversation. That was the beginning of my targeting. That's how it all started. My brother looked over at me. Of course, I'm not much on swearing. But he looked at me and goes, what the hell was that? I said, I do not know. So now here I am. What's one of the things that they try to do to a targeted individual? My stuff's in storage. They want you to be homeless. Well, I never thought about that at the time because I didn't know what targeting was. So I went to 4 or 5 more places. I'd go in, I'd fill out an application. First, I didn't think anything about the first one. I thought the guy was just off his rock. That's what I thought. I go back the next day and I'd say, I filled out an application for, for a place here. And I said, I want to add something on that application. That was my excuse going in. The guy went to it and says, I'm sorry, sir. Did you fill out an application here? I said, yeah, yesterday. I said, I dealt with you. He goes, I don't have no application on you. He said, I don't even remember you. I said, oh, okay. Now I'm really beginning to look at my life differently. I go to another place. This time I'm more aware. I wanted to see if the same thing would happen. My brother wasn't with me during these. I did it again. Went back the next day. Same person there. I said, yeah, I filled out an application here yesterday. You remember me? This time it was a lady. She goes, no, sir, I don't. I said, I filled out the application, give it to you, and you took it. And I said, I had something I wanted to add to that application. And she goes, well, okay, let me get it. So she goes, sir, I don't have no application on you. I said, you don't have no application on me. I said, I talked to you yesterday. I don't have nothing on you. I said, okay. And I kept repeating that and going through that. And at this time, because I could afford to go to a hotel room, I retired from the Bureau. I also have a disability from the United States Navy, so I wasn't hurting money-wise. My daughter was in college, who, by the way, she graduates this month with a degree in nursing. But anyway, whatever I felt, I couldn't process it. This was different. I had to process when my children disappeared. I didn't have no choice. their life was on the line. So I tried to keep a cool head, but this was different. This was totally different. Something like I felt like I lived in the Twilight Zone. Well, I was taking a stomach medication the doctor had given me. I thought, maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just me, you know. But then I thought back about what me and my brother went through, and I said, no, it can't be. It was about this time I started noticing these people following me. Nah, my imagination. So I went and got a hotel room, and I got to figure out what I was going to do. And in the meantime, during this unfortunate time, my sister called me and told me I'd been talking to my brother-in-law who'd been ill, and he passed away. Well, I was in this hotel, and as I sit inside the hotel, I seen this big, dark, black truck. And, I mean, you couldn't see through those windows if you tried. All of a sudden, he rolls his window down, and I'm looking through the window. He can't see me, but I can see him. And he's taking the pictures of my car, and he's got this camera, and it's, you know, and I'm thinking, what the world is that? Well, I called my sister back, and I told her, I said, well, you need some help because she's got a really bad hip and it has to be replaced. And she goes, I really need your help, Brian. And I said, okay, I'm on my way. So I packed all my clothes I was going to take. I didn't know how long I was going to be there. It could be a week, could be 2 weeks. I got down to her house. She's very well off, and her husband was a great financial planner and left her well when he passed on. Plus, he left insurance for her and set her up really well. And she lives in a very beautiful home. And I went down there, and I began to do the things she asked me to do. I fixed her roof. I repaired her back porch. I had done all these different things. But the whole time I'd go out in the community, I'd noticed that I was being followed. And so I sort of, in passing, sort of mentioned it to my sister. Still, you got to understand, I still did not know that I was a targeted individual. I didn't understand the term. I didn't know what it was yet. And I'd go into the supermarket, and I'd notice these people following me. And so, but they didn't have a cart. They didn't have no food. They didn't have anything. So I began to take pictures of them. Well, that didn't make them very comfortable. Well, finally, I also noticed that when I was being followed, a lot of the people that would follow me would use temporary tags on their vehicles. So I told my sister, I said, she's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person. She is a mother, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, and she is definitely a bulldog. She is so cool. You guys, there's not a person I ever in my life that's met her that didn't love her for who she really is, and that's just a very good person. So I'm telling her one day, I said, think about all those temporary tags. You know, I told her, I said, you know, they're following me. She goes, really? They're not following you, Brian. I see temporary tags all the time. I said, I bet you never even paid attention to how many temporary tags. I said, I can prove that they're following me. She goes, how's that? I said, you just give me the chance and I'll show you. So one day we were out, and she had a great-granddaughter, and her great-granddaughter called her from school and she'd go out to Chick-fil-A and pick up some lunch for her. And so I told her, I said, yeah, let's go, I'll drive. So we pull into this Chick-fil-A, and we are waiting a few minutes, and this car pulls in beside me. Because obviously I haven't been there all that long. I don't know anybody in this particular part of the country. It's about 20 miles from the Mexican border in a town called Harlingen. So I looked over at my sister, and I said, see that guy right there? She goes, yeah. I said, I think he's trying to listen in on our conversation. I said, I'll tell you what. I bet he's got a temporary tag on his car. And I bet you if I pull out now and we go to that drive-through and order, when you pull out, look and see if he's got a temporary tag. So I pull out and I drive over to get in line for the drive-through to get the food, and sure enough, he had a temporary tag. She looked over at me and she goes, how'd you know that? I said, because something strange going on with me. I've caught him while I was there, a man sitting along the road with some kind of listening device trying to hear my conversation, or trying to record me, or trying to hear what I was saying. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. And it was still at this time, I didn't understand what it was. So then I wanted to go to San Antonio, and I wanted to go up and visit her daughter. Well, she went up with her granddaughter, and I said, I'll meet you up there. I knew where to go. I familiar with Texas. I've been through there quite a few times, and I knew where she lived. And on my way up there, these 4 huge trucks boxed me in. And one of them slid off, and the semi come over and ground the side of my car. They tried to kill me. And I did not understand what that was all about. But this time, whatever it was, I knew it was serious. And I didn't understand the concept behind it. I understand it now more than I've ever understood anything. But anyway, the heat became so bad there in Texas, I got all I could do for her, and I said, hey, is it okay if I head back towards Indiana? And she says, yeah, I wish you'd stay because I worry about it. I said, well, I really need to get home. My daughter, I got a daughter that's getting ready to graduate 27th of this month from a major university with a degree, summa cum laude. He's going to graduate as a registered nurse, and I want to be there for graduation. And, of course, I'm here now, but that's what I told her, that eventually I wanted to be there for her graduation. And the odd thing about all this, I spent probably the last 18 years of my life, almost every day, there wasn't a day went by that I didn't see my brother, or we didn't go do something, whether it was fish, camp, whatever, on our free time. We were big into sports. My daughter was a 3-sport athlete. She was all Valley in basketball. She was sectional 200-meter title holder in track and field. She was all Valley in soccer. I mean, she was just a phenomenal athlete. And she lived with me during the high school years. And she had a brother. I had 2 children by one lady and 3 by the other. And the reason I had the last 2, I did not really know if I was ever going to see the other 3 again. I really didn't. And so my life has been like that, and the turmoil behind that, and the stress and the fight well prepared me for what I'm going through. But I've kept a very even keel as best I could. If there was any suffering to be done, I never let those individuals see me suffer, ever. I don't know that I have spoken to Ella, and I have a lot of evidence, but I don't know how much right now that's helpful to me. I also know that I've had to take a long look at myself. I've never ever been arrested for a crime. I've kept all the cards and letters and of appreciation and how much my children loved me and respected me and how come they are who they are today, and my oldest sister, who still, like I said, lives in Texas. She's been my biggest supporter. But it was my brother that I lost. I mean, every day for 18 years, and he won't even return my phone calls. I thought about that a long time and wondered, did they get to him? I don't think so. I really don't. I think what happened to him was he seen the truth of the matter, and I think he was afraid, and I don't blame him. So I don't hold any grudge against that. But in speaking with Ella a few times, and Ella seen some of my evidence, and I will mention some of the things that I have come across and my ideas about why I've done the way I've done what I've done. One thing I'd like to say is that as far as targeting goes, I looked at it from a different perspective. They say, well, you got to go out and live a normal life. Well, I do that for a man in his middle 60s. I go to the grocery store, I go to the movies. But then they started breaking into my apartment. So then I began to record them. And I got them on recording. I got both of the break-ins in this place that I'm at, this flat that I've rented temporarily because I've been looking for a place to buy. And I think I've found one. And they poisoned my food. They've been, they've broken into my car 10 times. When I would stay at a hotel, they would send prostitute. The first they'd send me a sexual text, using this terminology, and I won't speak the whole word. Do you want to F me? And then 10 minutes later, a prostitute would show up at my hotel room. And I would record those things. I knew what was coming. By that point, I didn't know what it was even then, that it was called targeting. But I was getting close. I pulled up down a freeway, and this lady came up behind me about 100 miles an hour and drove off at 100 miles an hour. And I stopped to ask a policeman for help. And what did they do? They cuffed me. They searched my car and said, "You need help." Well, at this point, I was so exhausted, so tired. I went into the VA hospital and said, can I check in here for a few days and sleep on one of your surgical wards? They said, "No, you can sleep in our psych ward." And I said, "Well, I won't do that." And I wouldn't do it. And so I slept in my car. And then I found this veterans place for guys that were in transition. And I went in as a volunteer, and they gave me a place to live for, so I could stay there for 4 months as long as I volunteered, and I did. And that's where I got my first radiation burn. That's where I was poisoned again. I had never asked for help. They tried to set me up in a drug sting that I recorded. The reason I say there's so much to this is that when they tried to set me up in this drug sting, now you remember I've never been arrested. I've never done anything. The one thing I wanted them to do when I went through the VA to go to have a physical, I wanted drug testing. I wanted them to test my drugs and make sure there was nobody had poisoned me with something that would could be used against me. And so I had 2 of those come out clean. Well, when they tried to set me up in the drug sting, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, my one son, Jared, I'll call him, I have a Jared and a Jaron. Jared, who was one of the kids that was kidnapped, and we were very close. Today, we're very close. He calls me all the time. He checks on me all the time. He's head of a security company, and he knows all about cameras. And there's just so much that he can, we're getting ready to set up this camera system inside my apartment. But anyway, they called him and said, "Hey, we found your father's car, and it's been abandoned." And it was just sitting in the parking lot at the place where I was at. Why would they do that? Then I got a call from a sheriff's deputy. He says, "What are you doing in Kentucky?" I said, "How do you know I'm in Kentucky? And who is this?" And he goes, "Well, this is the sheriff's deputy of such and such a county." He said, "We know you got a problem. We want to help you." And I said, "What problem is that, sir?" So I had to, I'm thinking, what the heck is that? Well, then another cop shows up, and he's a detective. He shows up at my apartment. I said, "So you think I got a problem too?" He says, "Oh, no, I think you're about the sane man as there is." So I don't think there's anything wrong with you. So then what are you doing here? Well, that's part of what my targeting was about. I seen something I shouldn't have seen. And I tried to be a good citizen and report it. And I think if I could tell you all the ins and outs of it, which I can't because I'm always afraid somebody's listening. And I tried to do the right thing. And the people that I was dealing with, I had tried to teach the gospel to. And they used me. I was retired by then, an old guy just out here living an everyday life, and it's been like that ever since. But I'd like to go to a different subject now a little bit, because I think, in speaking with Ella, speaking with Dr. Aaron, some of the evidence that I've shown, I have a flash burn on a mirror where I was attacked in a hotel room. I sent that to Dr. Aaron, and I asked him, what he thought. There was a possibility. I think that it was a flash burn. I'm not going to say that he said it was. I'm not going to say he said it wasn't. I don't think that's right for me to do that. But his communication to me is it could be very possible it was. Because when I would steam up the room like Dr. Aaron did on one of his videos, it would be there. And when the steam dissipated, it would be gone. And you could look on that mirror as close as put your nose on the end of that mirror and look up and down, and you could not find that flash burn. But if you steamed that up, there it was. I have all kinds of videos of burns. I have been boxed in and shot with something that hit me around the heart, that all the tissue bunched up. I've got all that recorded. I also like to aggravate perks. I'll tell them, I said, "Oh, yeah," I said, "how's your handler doing?" the look on their face is priceless. I said, you know, I got a handler too. He said, man, you take a good picture. I said, you know, I want you to know if anything happens to me, your picture and this conversation. Oh, I said, by the way, I'm recording that. I'm sorry. No, I just mess with them. I mean, I probably shouldn't, but I do. And I want them to know that I'm not a dummy. And you know, if you're gonna mess with me, I'm gonna catch you at something. And I've caught a lot of evidence like that. But you know, my opinion on some things is differs. I look at this Constitution, and I say the life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, due process, all those things that go on in a natural society under a republic. People say, well, we're a democracy. We are not a democracy. We are a republic, and there is a big difference. Republics are under common law. Democracies are under admiralty law. And there is a big difference. And I believe that I want this to be known too, that people that are impatient as far as a civil lawsuit goes, it takes maybe 5, 6 years, 7, could be take that long just to research everything. And probably longer than that once you file the claim and fight it in court. It could be another 10 years after that. So, you know, we have to be, as TIs, we need to come together. And I think I spoke with Ella about the politicalization of what we could do as a political entity, just like you would, an example would be like the Teamsters or somebody that if you had 500,000 people speaking on behalf of a group, that's pretty formidable. We have to attack from different angles. The only problem I see with the political side of trying to do that, becoming a political entity, is that some people who believe moderately, some people who believe conservatively, some people who believe on liberally, you know, can we set those differences aside and focus on what we need to focus on to put pressure on somebody somewhere? Because you can write a congressman or a senator or, you know, like my friend who helped me find my children, who was a deputy sheriff, and all the state police that used to be my friends and know what won't come within 5 feet of me now. But we write these congressmen and senators, and we really don't make any headway because, you know, what's one person going to do? Oh, cliche, if you got 1,000 people writing letters, but to different places, and nobody's answering the letters or nobody's answering the calls, where are we with that? You know, they're supposed to represent us, not themselves or some other entity. Granted, they have a lot on their plate. But as a political group, if we could organize that, it would be a fabulous way to put pressure on them. I was speaking to Ella tonight about 2 people that I've researched and come across. One's name is John Solomon. The other one, his name is Sarah Carter. They are investigative journalists. And to find somebody like those 2 that could investigate what is a targeted individual and what is behind it, we all know what's behind it. It's called the Patriot Act. But those people are the type of people, they don't care about the politicalization of a cause. They only care about what does the law say that's being done to targeted individuals. And that's the difference. I mean, if you look at the head of the FBI or the DHS or CIA or anybody of that nature, who appoints them? The President of the United States, no matter who the President is. It's a political appointment. And so, therefore, we're fighting against a political agenda with, like, the Patriot Act or anything that goes along with it. If you go look up the word Patriot Act, it gives you a definition, but it also gives you this thing that says for terrorist. It's just another government act or program that's just got out of control. And I think people like the late Ted Gunderson and Gerald Salisbury, great men like that, people like Dr. Matthew Aaron, Ella Free. I talk about those people, even though I know them, I talk about them in high regard because they're leading this charge. And I say those things because I mean, Richard Lighthouse, there's a guy there. How bright is that guy? Whew, he's smart. Or Dr. John Hall. I mean, how about Karen Stewart? Or William Biney? I mean, we have a lot on our side. We just got to organize it. I've had questions, for instance, if a target that was out here, and like I said, nobody is going to be able to find me guilty of crime. I know what I think, what I know, and I've got my evidence. But if a target gets arrested who's really been targeted, had extrajudicial punishment used against him, does he have any hope for representation? I don't know. I don't know how that works. I don't know. Maybe you all know. Maybe you can tell me. But I'm very thankful. I write a lot of letters. I've come across a lot of TIs, and I've got to know them. I've written probably over 200 letters to different TIs. And, it's hard to trust as a TI. It's hard to know who really is a TI and who's not, But I think that's a concern of a lot of TIs too. I mean, there's just so much, but I think we have the basis. I think we're beginning to have the basis for what it means to come together. And I've met a lot of very bright people, and since I've been targeted, and how I finally found out that I was targeted too, by the way, was I came across I think it was one of Dr. Aaron's, it was one of Ella's videos. I thought, oh, that lady sounds familiar. Where have I heard that name? Well, what it was I'd seen her name, but I didn't listen to the video. So when I listened to the video, I can't even remember who it was at the time. And I've listened to literally hundreds of them since that time. Everything I can find. And I said, my goodness. I said, that's me. And I realized I was targeted. I realized it. I realized the term. I realized my life was never going to be quite the same. And at the same time, I want you guys to know when I first started, I was very fearful because I believed they were trying to put me where I used to work, which would be a death sentence. And I'm not like that anymore. I don't care anymore. Not that I don't care about you or what I'm going through. I don't care what they try to do to me anymore. I'm not afraid of them anymore. I just am. I'm not. I believe that the most important attribute I have is to love my neighbor as myself. Definitely the most important part about being a targeted individual. And I mean, do not lash out at them. Do not do anything in a violent way. I've seen what violence is like in the places I've been, and it's just not acceptable. We have to have credibility, and I think we have a ton of it. And people like Ella and Dr. Aaron and the people I mentioned, the people who have been on the front lines doing what they're doing, setting up. A lot of times I can't make these things far away because I've got a lot going on here, but I donate. I'll do whatever I can. But once my daughter gets out of college and starts working, I'm going to free up a lot of money. And so I plan on trying to find my niche within this, within whatever you want to call it. I call it a heinous crime, but it's I'm no different than the other TIs, but I want to help. And I want to be anybody. I've told TIs and wrote letters to TIs, and I've had these people call me. I said, don't worry about the time of day or the difference in our time. If it's 4 o'clock in the morning my time and you need me, call me. And I've had that happen. And I'm glad to do that. I've had one night an individual called me, and it was 2 o'clock in the morning. And we talked till 9 o'clock the next morning. I don't know what time it was there. I just know it was 9 o'clock my time. It might have been different there, but I just know that any little thing to do to reach out to help another individual, anything. Like I said, we got some good leadership. And I hope I haven't just bounced around because I got so much in my head. But I'm very, very thankful for each one of your lives. It means a lot to me that you have fought through, and that you're still, the proof of it is you're here tonight listening. And I thank God for your life. and I'm glad that I don't know you, but hopefully maybe afterwards, if you want to ask me some questions, I'll be glad to answer them. I don't know how long I've been talking, Ella.
You've been talking not that long.
How long has it been?
50 minutes since we hit the record button. You were very organized, and everyone always thinks they're all over the place, but how can they not be? These stories are so complex, so it's hard to organize. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to go ahead and start taking some questions. So if you'd like to ask a question, what you do is you *6. And then, Brian, the first not you. Anybody listening who wants to ask a question, *6, and I'll put you in a queue. And then, Brian, when I go to get the first person, it might mute you, but I'll quickly unmute you again.
Okay.
Okay, so here we go. Let's go to the first person. And again, just keep the questions about Brian. If it's really urgent, you need to share something or need some help, let us know as well. And try to keep so far, who knows? So far there's like 7 people in the queue, so it's not too crazy. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go to the first person, which is 303 area code.
Okay.
Go ahead, 303.
Oh, yeah, hi. My name is Jason. I'm from Denver, Colorado. I can relate a lot with the poisoning of the foods and being they're kind of playing with me now. They make it hard for me to think. They make every day hard. But I just had a question, Brian. I'm from Illinois originally, but
what part?
I'm from Lansing, Illinois.
Okay.
Yeah. My uncle's there, and where's he? In Lake Village, Indiana. So I don't know where that is. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
I think I know where that's at too, by the way, but I'm not real sure about that. But I think I do.
Right.
What's your question?
I was just seeing if I can get another TI's number to.
Well, yeah, sure. You'd like to have my number? I'll tell you what you do. I'm going to give it to Ella. I won't give it out over the phone, but I'll give it to Ella, and she can give it to you. Would that be appropriate?
Yeah, just call our hotline, but not right now while I'm having an interview. It's 503, if you have a pen.
Yeah.
308 1691, and just call me, and I'll give you his number.
Okay,
absolutely.
Great.
Yeah. Please call me, and call me anytime, day and night. It doesn't matter if you feel down, if you feel out and about, or you just feel like you just need somebody to talk to. Please call me, sir.
Right. Thank you very much, Brian.
Okay.
You're very welcome, sir.
Kind of you, Brian. I appreciate people like you. Okay, next is
you're
Shelley.
Very welcome. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Brian.
Hi, Shelley.
You said you were in corrections in Indiana. I wanted to know if you are familiar with CMUs or communication management units, and are you familiar with the Schaefer-Cox story?
Very much so. Schaefer-Cox was actually set up, and he is in those special types of housing units. They're like a no contact with anybody almost, except maybe their attorneys, and even those are done in a most difficult way. But Schaefer-Cox very much so. And that was one thing I was going to mention to people tonight that I think we need to be very aware of is guns. Now, trained with weapons in the military, trained in weapons with the Bureau of Prisons, I don't own a gun anymore. Not that I don't believe that person has a right or doesn't have a right. I don't own one for one reason. That gives them another way to find a way to catch me up in a charge if I don't do something exactly the way they think I should. So I got rid of mine. Still there?
Yes. Yes, thank you for your answer.
Yes, but yes, I'm very much aware of Schaefer Cox. How did you come across that? How did you come across that information?
I learned of him. I think it was last week because someone mentioned him in a. I read the comments below videos, and a woman who has a channel called Never Lose the Truth. She had
listen to me. Would you please tell me your first name again?
Shelley.
Shelley. I want you to. You got a pen and a piece of paper?
Yes.
Okay. I want you to write this name down. And I want you to Google this name, okay?
Okay.
It is Frederick Whitehurst.
Whitehurst. Okay.
You know who he was?
No.
Okay. I'll give you the little insight on that. Frederick Whitehurst during the 80s was one of the lab technicians for the FBI. The FBI wanted to they wanted to build a more advanced lab for a criminal lab, forensics. Well, Mr. Whitehurst was one of these guys that he was the type of guy that done everything by the book. So now you go and read the rest of that story, as Paul Harvey says. And
okay, I'll do that.
You're going to read a story that you're not going to quite believe. And you'll know how and why. Just that story alone, and that's not even the beginning of what I know and the research I've done. That's just the beginning of why you know a guy like Schaefer Cox ended up where he did. That'll tell you everything you need to know as to why.
Okay, thank you.
You're
do you
very
think
welcome.
that he'll ever be able to get out, or is he going to have to serve the 26 years or 25 years?
Well, let me say this. There are people on the streets as we talk. And I do, he has a family, married, has children. I think it comes down to other cases that I've seen, and I could sit and talk to you. I could start tonight, Kelly. And this time next week, we'd still be talking about all the things I've seen and all the cases I've seen through my life and the things that I worked at before. I've been involved with witness protection. I've seen it all, Shelley. I've seen it all. And I can tell you that there's a two-tiered justice system in this country, and it's just the way it is. How do I know it? Schaefer Cox is a classic example. Okay. Thank you for your question.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm going to go to
Ella?
the next. Yes?
Hey, before can they hear us talking?
Yes, I can.
Good. Okay. I just want people to hear what what I'm saying. Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, so now I'm going to go to Anonymous.
Question.
Hi.
How are you doing? Go ahead, please. I got an echo.
I'll go to the next person. Hi, 616. Do you have a question for Brian?
Hi there, I do.
Are you there?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
We lost her, though. I wonder what's going on.
I'm here if you want me to jump ahead.
Probably some of the questions. Probably that
Go
last
ahead.
question.
Sorry,
about,
I thought you hung up or somehow you got disconnected.
Well, it's probably about that last question, that Schaefer Cox question.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot about that case.
781, do you want to ask a question now?
Oh, sure. Thank you. First of all, Brian, I'm thrilled to hear you tonight, and your story is quite eloquent and detailed. Thank you so much for being so organized when you came on the call.
Saying
amazing. That. The question I have for you has to do with your brother. I don't know why, but it struck a chord with me. So many of us as TIs have had our family disconnect from us. But the specific thing you said was you sensed in some way that your brother knew something about this, and he was afraid because he saw the truth of the matter. Would you describe what you meant more in detail about that?
Well, my brother is a very different person. I think whenever I speak, when I spoke what I said, I didn't think I misspoke, ma'am. What I mean is this. My brother grew up in the same household as me. We had a lot in common. There's a lot about my story, about my personal life that I didn't get into, some of the things I did, how we were raised, how it was a very difficult childhood for him, for me, for my sisters, for my mother. But I'm not going to get off into that because it was just heinous. But he is a different fellow. And there's a term out there. I wish I could come up with that off the top of my head, but I think I must have been hit with too much radiation. But we were just as close as two people could be. But it was when the first time he seen one of my radiation burns, he knew that it was something totally off the wall. And I think he really feared he never could have any children. I think he basically feared for him and not for him as much as he did for his wife. And I think that that's part of it. And he knew the truth of what was happening to me. When I say he knew the truth of the matter, he could see that something was happening to me that he had never seen in his life, and he did not have an understanding of it. And I think it frightened him. I think it would frighten anybody. And since this has happened, and this, like I said, tomorrow begins my 3rd year, I think I've talked to him once. And it's tragic. But I will say this, though, and I want everybody to hear this who's left and is still listening. Don't ever give up. There's not a week goes by. I don't call his number. I'll say, hey, I'm getting that tractor out. It's time to get ready. It's springtime here. Grease up that old lawnmower. Fill it up with gasoline. I want to come by and watch you mow it. And I just hang up. I just keep doing it. I'm going to keep doing it until he either does one of two things. Either he begins to talk to me again or he blocks me. I'm not going to quit. I'm never going to give up. Just like my 2 youngest children. I know that they tried to get to my 2 youngest children. And I've watched my one son struggle with that. But I will not give up. Because I never even whipped my children because of the way I was raised. I would put them in timeout or whatever, I just, and there wasn't a night that I didn't get down on my knees with them and pray to God to help them in their life and be part of it. I didn't do nothing with my children other than good. So I believe in my heart that, perfect love casts out all fear, and I believe that, if you raise a child the right way, eventually they're going to be old like me, and they're going to look back someday, and I hope they look back at me and go, that was one fine dad there. That's how I look at it, If the emotional side of that is the other side of that, is so too emotional for me. I don't want to think about my children going away and never coming back like I did the first time when the 3 of them left and I thought they were dead. I'm not going there anymore. And they can't break me. Whoever these people are, they can't break me. It's just not possible. They can't. Thank you for your question.
You're welcome. I really admire your ability to go there with us tonight on the call. That was a huge, brave thing.
Well, I'll tell you, ma'am, any time that if your targeting becomes too hard or you need somebody just to say, hey, man, I need somebody that understands what I'm going through, you call me anytime, day or night. I do not care.
Thank you so much, Brian. Really,
you're very welcome.
That's tremendous. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, thank you for the question. Okay, 314, you're next. Hi, 314.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much to Brian for coming and sharing his experiences with being a TI. My name is Ann. I'm originally from Allen County, Indiana, and since you're from Indiana, I was wondering if you could connect me with some people that are also TIs. I feel like that. Go ahead.
In Indiana, that's been a real problem for me. I have not found very many. You're the second one that I found in Indiana.
Really? Wow.
The other one that I tried to connect with, I did for like 5 minutes one day, and I've tried to get a hold of him, change his number and everything, and I understand how that works. And he was from New Albany.
I was in Fort Wayne. And I have not
come across. Now, Allen County, what city is close to Allen?
I was in Fort Wayne.
Oh yeah, you're way up north in the cold weather.
And I was born visually impaired, and I feel like my targeting started back as early as 2005 or possibly earlier. I mean, when I write it out on Facebook, I just put 10 with a plus sign. I'm almost 46, and I'm just having a real hard time with these people. You know, they think it's fun to torment somebody that's visually impaired. I'm tired of the constant empty threats. And I've got Dave Case on their case right now, and they're not liking it. Well, it's tough. This is a war.
You got who on their case?
Dave Case. It's a CD that you listen to for V2K and stuff like that.
You know, that's just something else I never talked much about tonight, and how am I, you know, I guess because I haven't had a lot of the V2K. I had a little bit at first. I think they figured out, I don't know if they figured out I was not receptive to it, or I'm not sure what it was. But I do get the bird chirpings in my ear when I know that the radiation's coming. You know, the beep, 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 beep. I get that.
Wow.
I think Dr. Aaron had mentioned on one of his videos that I made a statement to me, and I told him, I said, yeah, I said, I got this bird chirping in my ear, you know. And since I was an ears, nose, and throat surgical and clinical technician, I'm going to do some research into that, you know, to find out if there's any. Oh, there was something else I wanted to mention out there tonight, and I didn't, but I will do it now. There is a new process that I have been researching. It's called electron paramagnetic resonance spectrometry, and it is a way to find through your fingernails and your toenails how much radiation is in your body.
Wow.
So I've been researching that hot and heavy. And, you know, it's just things that, always trying to find an angle, always trying to find a way to maybe help us gather evidence, and the kind of evidence that could be used in the court of law that would be very substantial, you know. I'm so sorry to hear that your vision is impaired. I know it must be a very difficult thing. It must be a very difficult thing.
It is really, really hard. So that caused me to live in 2 different Section 8 type buildings, and they're saying a lot of people who live in those really get a hard time.
Well,
but they get, because I know I've had. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Do you get Social Security?
I do.
Well, good. Well, you know, I've always felt that the people that really need it sometimes don't get it, and the ones that don't need it get it, you know. But I'm glad that they're taking care of you. And I will say to you, like I tell everybody, please know that if you ever feel overwhelmed, call Ella to get my number. You're welcome to call me.
Yeah. Could you give him my number, Ella? I would really appreciate that.
Can you just call me? It would be easier if you called me.
Oh, sure. I have your number.
Okay, yeah, just call me. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Ella. If there's any more questions, you said you had a new number. I was preparing there, and I don't know if I picked up on your new number that I'm going to need.
Sure. Okay, so because I got an email this morning from Free Conference Call, I will now have a new number. I'm glad I got a day notice. But anyways,
can you tell me what that number is?
Sure, it's 515-606-5187, and we'll post this on YouTube, and we'll put it on the front of it as well.
That's 606.
5187.
Yeah, got it. 606-5187, 515-606-5187.
It's just 515-606-5187. That's the phone number, and then the ID number is the same though. That's one good thing. 400014 #.
Yeah, I had that memorized for a long time.
I'm sorry. I hate when
like I
people
said, I
memorize
don't always ask a lot of questions. There's some other things I wanted to mention tonight. I don't know how much time you have left, but
We have about 45 minutes or so. We have time.
Okay. I don't know how many people are still on the call.
There's about 100.
Oh, wow. One thing that I come across that I had researched, when you look in the communities, I believe that when you look at the CIA, the DHS, the FBI, fusion centers, I believe a lot of that has now been filtered down into some of these states, into the state police, sheriff's departments, so on and so forth. The reason I say that is some of the research that I've done, there's a term called OpScam. You ever heard of that?
I've never heard of it personally, no.
Okay, well, OpScam is this. It is Olympic Peninsula Safety Communication Network. And one of the acronyms off of that would be something like IPAWS, Integrated Public Awareness Warning System. It's like almost like, what's the term, Amber Alert or Silver Alert.
Right, Amber Alert, yeah.
Yes, those types of issues that get grants, and they now, I believe, are hiring these people to work on that. And they're utilizing those two type of situations when you see this in the community. And that's how they're what we call neighborhood crime watch. There are some on neighborhood crime watches. They are required by law to be trained, and they're also required by law to have their name entered. The OpScam and the IPAWS, that's not true. So that's how they're hiding them. So I say that because a lot of people wonder where all these people come from, and there are probably some who fall under the VHS, or maybe they're totally different. Each state's different. I'm sure Oregon's different than Indiana, just like there's probably 10 times more targets in California, or probably even where you live, than there are in Indiana. I know very few people. But the lady that had lost her eyesight, I'd heard her on your program before. And I thought I had. I was going to mention also, I don't know, when's the last time you had Kathy Meadows on? She's very, very, very helpful.
Oh, I just had her on last week.
Yeah, Kathy and I've dealt with Kathy, and I'm going to be dealing with her some more. I've just been so busy doing what I'm doing. I went through one of her programs, and I didn't mind the cost of it for me, but it was very helpful to me. And first time I heard her, I happened to be just calling in on a night you weren't on. I was on Targeted Massachusetts, and that's where I first heard her. And I didn't know she was last week because I was busy last week doing. I had a project I was working on. I get started on these projects and research projects on what I'm researching, and I just get so enthralled in it. I haven't watched TV in 2 years.
Good for you.
So, I haven't. I'm telling you, I haven't
stuck in the vortex of Trumplandia, good and bad, whatever anybody's opinion is. But
I'm telling you,
actually, I'm detoxing at the moment, so and kind of focusing more on targeted individual stuff again. We have so many great events coming up, so I'm kind of focused on that.
Well, I would love to have went out to the one out there in California. Well, like I said, I donated to that event through GoFundMe, and I'm thinking, this time next year, I probably will be able to fly to some of those if they're far enough away, and I want to be able to connect that way too. I had something, I need to get online. There's questions I'd like to ask. What do you think about, for instance, you talk about doing flyers and things like that. I come across an idea that might be interesting. There's a section under the Constitution that talks about due process of law, and it talks about life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. I'm going to find that again, and I'm going to write that out and copy it. And that would be a good thing to hand to a police officer or to anybody that's targeted, if they come across a police officer who's treating them in a very negative way, or if they just want to walk up to them and say, hey, in the city they're in, if they think that they're involved in any way, say, hey, what do you think of that? Have a good day, officer. And he'll pick it and he'll read it.
Exactly. That's what we always suggest that to people. So instead of taking any chances, just, if you're not sure if they're a perp or not, and a lot of times, we get oversensitized, so we tend to think maybe people that aren't involved are involved. So I said just go up and give them a handout. If they are a perpetrator, they're busted, and if they're not, they're getting educated. It's an opportunity
That's
for
exactly
an educational moment.
I think the worst thing for me, I've had some conversations with a couple. I mean, they were just stone cold angry. And it's hard to deal with that because it's just, like I said, I've been through just as much as the next person, but I'm not lashing out like that.
Right.
It's got to be done in a very nonviolent way. It's got to be. It's probably the most important thing that we have is how we respond to it, and the way that you and all the people that are involved, as far as you do a lot of work, Ella. I know you do. It must take away from your family, and it must be difficult at times.
It is, but I think about I'm doing it for the sake of my kids, and 2 of my kids are grown, and 1 is 14, and then I had another kiddo living with us who went to live with some friends. They're older, luckily, so I feel much more guilty if they were really young. I'm just glad it didn't happen when they were really little, although I didn't have 2 of them when they were really little. But, so, I used to grapple with that a lot, but I found a balance. I've now found a way to balance out both worlds, finally.
I tell you what, I have a lot of time, more so than most, but I don't waste it. If I stay inside my apartment, it's only because I'm involved in writing a letter to a TI that I have contact with one TI in Australia.
Oh, you do?
And, pardon me?
You have? Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and her name, and if you can know where to find her, you can find her. She's really a fighter. Her name is Nicola, and she is some kind of a fighter. She had her whole what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, her whole life is her children, and as well it should be, and I love to talk to her because she's so positive, and she's so, it's the kind of fight in her is not anger, it's determination, and there's a big difference, and we have probably wrote each other back and forth probably 4 or 5 times already, and then I have the guy that I've talked to, and then all of a sudden she says, well, I got 4 or 5 of these guys that seen your answer to this particular question, and they all want you to write them a letter, and I just don't, I try to keep up with it, but I've decided that that's something I can do until I get to a position where I can get more involved,
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, I wanted to thank you for giving me the opportunity. I know I was going to tell you, hey, keep me on point, will you?
No, you're doing great. You really are.
Well, I had so much more. There was so much stuff that I do a lot by memory. I need to do that because sometimes I've been hit in the head so many times with whatever it is that they hit me with that I think I'm losing out. I think I'm starting to lose my memory. But anyway, I was shocked nobody asked me about that kidnapping. And there's something else I wanted to tell about that.
Oh, there's still a lot more questions coming. Should we go to the next question? We got
sure. I'm sorry. I didn't know that. I thought everybody was done.
Nope. Here we go. We'll go to the next person. Thank you, 314, for your question. Hi, 716.
Hey, Ella. How you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. I'm not too bad. It's been a rough day today. Rough day. God's will be done. Got a lot accomplished, though.
Well, good. That's a good thing.
Absolutely. It's good to hear on the other TIs, especially ones that turn to Christ, turn to God, instead of turning elsewhere. One thing I wanted to say is, you have an amazing testimony, and, I'm sorry you have to go through that, but, our personal beliefs.
It made me a stronger person, sir.
And God has a plan for all of us.
There's no doubt about that.
All things work together for the greater of the good, no matter
what. Also remember this, too. Just give me your first name.
My name is Mark Porter.
Mark?
Yeah.
Perfect love, cast out all fear.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. What's your question tonight, Mark?
I don't really have a question. I do have a few, but I'm going to do some research
that's okay.
before. I just wanted to say something. Something that the Lord's been laying on my heart for quite some time. I'm a TI. I've been targeted for over a decade. Before my kids were born, I have two daughters, 11 and 10. My oldest will be 12
Do you know
this year.
why you were targeted?
Honestly, because my own personal, and with everything that's been going on when I was younger, I was a troubled youth. I was living on the streets when I was 16, homeless. I was a castaway. It was a perfect recipe, and this is where I want to bring this up. I have a chip inside of me. I have proof of it. I have a couple of chips inside of me. I have proof of one, working on the rest. Like I have actual X-ray proof where the X-ray was sent out officially. It was sent out to the CIA to do investigation on it right now.
Have you done any research on the type of chip it is, or do you know what the type of chip it is, Mark?
I'm not sure. There are multiple different types of chips. If you do research on chips, there are hundreds of chips. The chip that's being sold mainstream right now to get the one implanted in your hand for fast access to your car or your door or your computer, or to log in, or to gain access to your work, or to turn on the lights, that's old technology. That's the first RFID chip to come out back in the 1970s. The chips they have off now, even the smart dust, even that's old school. That's old news. The nanotechnology, there's one chip in particular. You won't find any research on it. I looked online. The only reason I heard about it was from AM Coast to Coast with George Norrie. It might have been Art Bell at the time.
I've listened. Now, one of those guys has passed on since one of them has, hasn't he?
Art Bell.
Yeah, Art Bell was. Art Bell was
the one that passed on. But George Norrie, Coast to Coast, I used to listen to that every single time it come on. I love that program.
Yeah, I used to listen to it all the time. I spent a long time locked up. When I was a troubled youth, I went to prison. I started going to jail. Started getting in trouble with the law when I was 15. Went to jail when I was 16. Caught a state bid when I was 17.
God has a way of changing that.
Yeah.
He has a way of, whenever God forgives you, you know what He does with your sins, don't you? He throws them into the sea of forgetfulness. And as long as you don't remember them. So, just remember that. And just remember that your struggles, He knows about them. And there's a better place for us someday as we grow up and grow old. But I want to offer the same thing to you as I offer everybody. If you ever need to call day or night, it doesn't matter. Call me. If you can't take another step forward,
I would definitely love to get
somebody to talk to. Call me. I'll be there for you.
I would definitely love to get in contact with you. How would I do that?
Well, Ella will have my number, and then she'll give it to you, and then you call me.
Okay, sounds good. What I wanted to say, like I was saying, that I was in jail, in and out, my whole life. Last time I got arrested was in 2010. But it was somewhere, I was either a teenager or in my early 20, 21, or 22. Sometime between 16 and 22, I was chipped. And
Well,
targeted.
I'll tell you, I hear a lot about that. I got something coming out of my back now. I'm beginning to wonder if, I tell you one way I think that they might be able to introduce those, if it's possible. They could do it if they can get in your house and they're probably minute in size and put it in a certain food. You swallow it and it has some kind of reaction to your body and it grows a little bit or does something like that. I'm not sure about that, but I haven't researched that yet. But like I said, I have researched a lot of different things in the targeting community, and I have wondered about this thing on my back. I haven't had it checked yet, but just the fact that I talked to you tonight, Mark, reminds me I need to go to get that done.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying about the one chip. The chip that I'm talking about specifically is called, the acronym is SYN chip. The S stands for something, the I stands for something, and the N stands for something. And the creator of this chip was on George Norrie. With George Norrie. Yeah. And
it might have been at that time I might have heard it, Mark, and didn't know what I was even hearing because I haven't known much about targeting until about 6 months ago.
Yeah, this was probably like back in 2000, somewhere between 2013 and 2015 when I listened to it. And he was talking about what the chip does, his reason for creating it, but it's pretty much, it's a brain implant. It goes inside your brain. His reason for making it was for soldiers that were injured in battle with TBIs, traumatic brain injuries, people with Alzheimer's or dementia that lose their mind.
My son he's 100% disabled. He was almost killed in Afghanistan. He had a traumatic brain injury.
I'm sorry to hear that, and tell him I said thank you for serving our country. And his reason for saying that was because they would be linked up to satellite. They would be able to upload their thoughts, their memories into a satellite database, and then they can download it at any time.
Now that part I can understand.
And that
I haven't seen evidence that can be done, but we know that technology is already there. I just can't find the evidence to prove it. Yeah.
So you're saying
like I said, you're not going to find the specific chip I'm talking about, but it was on a show on AM Coast to Coast with George Norrie. It was on sometime between 2013 2015. I'm going to try to find the show. I'm going to go through the archives and try to find it because a lot of people want to know about it.
That information right there for me is something I need to research more and become more fluent in understanding how it works, so that when I do talk about it, at least I can talk about it in a correct way. Because I think that's another thing we have to be concerned about is misinformation.
Absolutely.
And I think that's because they're a master at misinformation.
Oh, absolutely. They're trained in this.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But it was nice meeting you, Mark, and thank you. And like I said, I have my number if you ever need to call me. Please do. I don't care. I don't care if I've got 500 people call me. It doesn't matter to me. What matters is that we stay connected, that we care about one another. That we, there's a lot of people that have come on here that are like that. I think. I mean, I'll give you an example. A guy named Michael Hughes. He's always helping somebody, doing something. That's just Michael Hughes. It's just I see all these great people out there, and it just tells you that they're picking really on the wrong people, really, because people like us eventually they're going to get theirs. I don't know how it's going to be, whether it be legally or whether they're going to die and have to face God Almighty, but they're going to get it one way or the other. And I don't mean it's going to come in a violent way for me, but just what I'm saying, you can't live this world and live in this life and mistreat people and think that karma or, something's not going to come back and get you. It's just the way it is. At least that's the way I've seen it. Unless I missed out on something there. Well, thank you again, Mark, for talking to me.
Not a problem. Can I say just one more thing? Just real quick. The one thing, and it's what I wanted to say. I called in before, and I said it before. one of the false and disinformations, and this is my own targeting, and I know for a fact, and it's being investigated right now as we speak.
What is it?
Especially because of who I was in the past, so especially being the different types of targets there are, and the false information that's thrown into the target individual groups intentionally from operative groups that work in the shadow government to throw us off. One of the things that I really do not like and actually hate when other TIs say, and it sucks for them, I get it, but when they say, well, I haven't committed a crime, I don't know why this is happening to me. I get that. But that's opening the door for those that do have criminal backgrounds to be justified of being targeted. Not only that, and if there is a justification for somebody, especially with the things that we go through, if it was a criminal, so say, for example, someone like a Charlie Manson that was under the same scrutiny and the same targeting that we are under, do you think that those people right there, like a Charles Manson, or the Navy Yard shooter, or the shooter at the Post nightclub in Florida, or the shooter that came from Canada with the gun on the plane?
How about the one in Aurora, Colorado, in the movie theater?
In the movie theaters, do you think someone being targeted that had a criminal background that was crazy would just sit there and like a good citizen that had never been in trouble with the law and deal with it that way, or will they deal with it with a criminal mentality and go out and do things with that criminal mentality? That's why it is dangerous for people to say, well, I haven't committed a crime, which is implanting
whenever I talk about my position, my story, Mark, it is from where I came from. Now, the reason I say that is because I was emphasizing the fact that I've had 2 background investigations, one by the FBI and one by the Department of Personnel Management out of Washington, D.C. And the reason I mentioned that, it was in reference to the fact, I've never been arrested. Well, obviously I've never been arrested, or I never worked where I worked, or I never would have passed those background investigations. And that's what I meant by that, and not that the fact that I'd never been arrested. But it was just like a metaphor into what I was trying to say.
No, I get exactly what you're saying. But that's the only reason why I wanted to say that is to stop that, because it plants seeds into people's minds saying, oh, well, then it's okay if it happens to this guy because he's a criminal. He's a bad guy.
No.
Well, those are the exact people.
I think you're misunderstanding what people are saying, Mark. What they're saying is that the government or anybody, revenge comes from people doing things wrong, whether criminally or you upset somebody or you did something that someone didn't like, so kind of like revenge. So in other words, they didn't do anything that would create a reaction, is what they're saying.
One part
so I think you're reading into it far. So there's people who are completely innocent, a sweet woman, raised her kids in Massachusetts, whatever, and then this happens to her. She's done nothing for anyone to retaliate against her, if that makes any sense.
Well, I think the most important part about your whole statement is something I said tonight. Even if a person is accused of a crime and became targeted because of it, accused, understand this is what's happening in society today. You are innocent until proven guilty of any crime. And what we do as a society today, you are guilty until proven innocent. Now, you can say whatever you want to say about that, that's fine. But the bottom line on it is I know that that's exactly how it works. I've not committed a crime, obviously, because if I hadn't been the person that had committed a crime, where would I be? I'd be arrested. My point is this. No matter who we are, what our situation is, if they want us to think that we're criminals, that's what they want us to think. They want us to think that because this is something that we've done and we're trying to figure out what it is. And so you begin to think, well, I told a lie one time when I was 7 years old. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's far-fetched. But my point is, no matter what happens in life, we are innocent of anything that we've ever been accused of until we are found guilty, period. So just remember that, Mark.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a saying, like I said, I spent half my life locked up. I haven't gotten locked up since 2010, praise God, and that's only because of him. I mean, I spent from pretty much 1998 into 2010 into facilities, and then from 2010 up until 2 years ago, in and out of psych wards because people kept on telling me I was crazy for telling them the truth of what was happening to me, and they kept on locking me up, and now I'm labeled as a schizophrenic. But now that I have proof there's a chip
how old are you? How old are you, Mark?
I'll be 37 this year. I'll be 37 this year.
Okay. Well, listen, I want to ask Elle if there's anybody else that's got any more questions because I need to move on. But you can call me anytime, Mark.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome. Hello, Ella. Hey, Ella.
Sorry, I was on mute.
That's all right. Is there anybody else?
Yes, Anonymous, you're unmuted. You have a question for Brian?
Hello?
There's a lot of Anonymous and they're not asking questions. Anonymous, do you have a question?
Hi. I had to unmute.
Hi, Barb.
Hi. Brian, my name is Barbara, and tonight you were very organized, intelligent. You've had incredibly valuable life experiences and very well spoken.
Well, thank you.
And as I was listening, I was thinking how good a spokesperson you could be for us. You have a good voice. You're well spoken. You have heart. You have a lot of good qualities, Brian, that come across undeniably over the phone.
Well,
So
I used to be a boss. That probably helped me.
Let me just finish. I'm just hoping that you consider taking on a leader role in our community because a lot more are needed. And I put you up there with the Karen Stewarts and the William Bennies and the Ellas and all those you hold in high esteem.
Well, thank you so very much.
That's what I just wanted to say, and I hope you consider it.
Well, thank you.
I think you have
incredibly
very kind of you. Leadership qualities for us.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Barbara. That was very kind of you. Okay, so now I'm going to go to 616. Hi, 616. Do you have a question for Brian?
I do. Hi there, Brian. I wanted to say, first of all, I commend your strength because you've obviously been through the ringer like a lot of us, and so I just want to commend you for that. And
thank you.
You are very well spoken. I wanted to have you repeat what that UPSCAN stood for again.
Oh, you're talking about the electron paramagnetic resonance spectrometry?
Say that again, electron paramagnetic?
Well, I'll tell you what, if you just put the first three letters in or the first three words, electron,
okay.
Electron, para, P-A-R-A, magnetic, M-A-G-N-E-T-I-C, Renaissance. So that would come out to be E-P-R. And it's like a MRI or, it's not like an MRI. It's got the abbreviations like that. And if you look that up, how I would go, I like to use DuckDuckGo because they don't track where you've been. But, you look up, just look that up and put that in there. If you can spell it out, I'm sure you'll get right to the site that you want to read about it and how it's up and coming. And, whenever they test radiation, it's done under the GY. When I forgot to mention this, too, as part of what I used to do. I was a field operations manager after I left the Bureau and retired early. I became a field operations manager for an environmental company. And I enjoyed that job very, very much. And I learned a lot in that. But as far as radiation goes, it's measured by GY. I think it's GYS. I don't know how you would pronounce that. But and this particular test is being utilized, or hoping to be able to utilize it when it comes time to test somebody that's been like Fukushima. Those people are, how much radiation is in them, and they do it to their fingernails and toenails, or, But I was wondering. Right. I've still got a lot of research to do on it. I mentioned it tonight because it allows other people to take a look at it, and then I think, evidentiary speaking, I think would be a very good way for to have an evidentiary. What's the word I'm looking for?
Proof.
Evidentiary data in that particular radiation field, as far as PIs are concerned, as far as evidence in a court case, and then if it's it's a highly technical test that has to be completed by somebody that's certified to do it. It makes it even that much more compelling.
Okay. Do you know what it does to like your fingernails and toenails?
Well, listen, this is how it works, and this is what I've been doing for the last 6 months. Every time I clip my fingernails, every time I clip my toenails,
you save them.
I save them. Just like my hair, I keep my head shaved like a baldy guy. I grow it out over a course. I shave it. I tag it. Date, time, when I did it, the month, everything. It's called, the term is, whenever you are doing testing of any kind, you have to have all the information. You got to have a chain of custody.
Right. Okay.
And that's why I've been doing it. I mean, I'm looking at this a little bit differently. I have some ideas I want to pursue. I want to look up. I keep an everyday journal. I've kept a journal of my life since I was probably 15. And I had a lot of stuff to put on the computer, let me tell you, and put it on disk. Anyway.
It'll make for an awesome movie one day.
Well, I think it would, I think it would, because, I had a lot of other things I wanted to say about what it's like whenever your children are kidnapped and taken overseas. I have a lot of information on that I even have that memorized. You ever heard of the Hague Convention?
Yes.
Yeah, you know what the Hague Convention is? That the Hague Convention is that part of, depending on what country that your children are taken to. My ex-wife, who stole my children, she was Caucasian, I was Caucasian, and she went to Pakistan. They had not signed the Hague Convention with our country because unfortunately, Muslim countries don't usually sign that with America because for whatever reason. And and it was so important to me that I'm not trying to put an onus or a negative point of view towards the Islamic behavior or Islamic religion. I'm just saying that that's what happened in that particular situation. I could say the same thing if it had been a Christian situation. You know what I mean? It wasn't that I was speaking negative of it. That's the way it was. Thank you for your question.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, I'm going to go to the next person. 406, you're next. Hi, 406.
Yeah, my name is Michael. My name is Michael. Mm-hmm. Thank you for your service, and your presentation was wonderful tonight. I have a question for you. I'm another TI. I'm a former military too. And what would be the purpose of this targeting and disabling and possibly even killing people? Because this has been doing that. That's what my question. That's one of the questions. I have a few questions.
Whenever I speak about something like that, I don't want to speak about it in a way that, if I don't know, I've heard of what they call this term, and I don't know that it's true, so I have to be careful when I say it, a depopulation.
Okay. Yeah.
You think about how things are, and then they talk about the deep state and who believes in the deep state, the New World Order. That's pretty complicated stuff for people to understand. Do I believe that I would believe there would be more a New World Order than I would believe that of a deep state. The New World Order is where the world is just one.
Right, one government, one religion. I know,
yeah.
I know that.
Now, I can see people trying to maybe have that, but I think this is far different. I think that what has happened here is about one thing. It's about money.
Yeah.
Let me tell you why I say that.
Okay.
If you go back and look at the United States Charter, and when did the Federal Reserve come into play? 1913.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And if you research all that and read about that, now some people, I think there's a lot of things that go on in this country that we know are against the Constitution. The 16th Amendment to the Constitution has never, ever been ratified. Not by every state.
Neither has the 14th. The 14th hasn't either.
That's right, exactly. And somebody asks you, they go, "Hey, man, somebody says, what's the Bill of Rights? You know what the Bill of Rights is?"
Yeah. See, the thing is, the 14th Amendment. That's right. I mean, due process is already in the Constitution, so you don't need the 14th Amendment. It was never legally ratified.
Very, very valid point, and that's my point. See, when people talk about criminality, they always talk. We're so vaccinated with the fact that you see it on the news stations and how they just bring all this stuff up. You can never get a fair trial. I mean, it says in the Constitution, the person that brings the accusation, you bring forth your evidence. They get their due process by bringing forth the accusation. You bring forth, and then at the end, if you're found guilty, then what are you? You're a criminal. Mm-hmm. Just because somebody says it, and that's what really bothers me today about that situation. And I could go on, but everything's politically correct today. If you say something about this or that or this or that, that's what I was speaking about. The politicalization of the world. I mean, all these agencies, CIA, FBI, DHS, DIA, DOD, the head of those are all political positions. Yeah. So therefore, we are political prisoners, in my estimation.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And it's very scary because the way I see it, we're going towards 1984, thought crimes and thought police. That's where we're going towards. That's where it's happening.
Yeah, it's like the Minority Report.
George Orwell,
Yeah. Yeah, but the point, see, I love to talk to somebody that can tell me exactly what you just said to me, sir, because that tells me that you've been reading. And that
I read a lot.
What the Constitution says to you means something.
Right.
It means something. It means the truth, the whole truth.
That's what we're fought
exactly
for,
what
right?
The framers expected it to mean to us.
This is what we swore our oath on, is protect and preserve it, right? And isn't that what against foreign and domestic?
Well, that's what I thought.
Our founding fathers wrote it for. This is what this is for.
You served, I served, and what this guy out here? Do you, as a TI, do you have life? Do you have liberty? Do you have the pursuit of happiness?
This is horrible. This is horrible.
It's horrible.
And I'm being tortured.
What was it? Yeah. Oh, me too. But you know what? I'm going to tell you, and they got to know it. There's only one way they can do this equation with me. They have to take me out, because I will never give up.
Yeah, I'm fighting too, man. I'm fighting too, brother. Me too.
I am never going to give up.
I'm fighting too. Me neither. I'm not giving up.
And I'm not afraid of them. But these cops, that come around and somebody, I'm confused by this. So they want you to think that they think if we got something on you, well, they ain't got squat on me. Because, I know when somebody tells me, hey, man, we set you up. That's all I need.
Mm-hmm.
That tells
I'm
me
so glad
that tells me they're
people.
the liars. They're the liars, not me.
Yeah. But just think of this, and I want other TIs to hear this too. Listen, there are some good people in those departments who are trying to help us out. I've had several deep throats helping me out. They've saved me several times, and I'm so grateful for that, man.
Law enforcement? Are you talking about
some of them are very good, yes. I agree. They helped me out. They helped me. They were trying to warn me. They said, hey, you're being set up. Like, look at this shit. I couldn't believe it.
I record my stuff. But here, each state is a little bit different. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out, I believe, I know that why they tried to do it was a revenge factor over something totally. It took me a long time to figure it out. This was first of all, it was about revenge, and so in order to get this started in the right direction, they had to try to set me up in something to make me look like I was a bad guy. But I couldn't.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why. Maybe it's because I don't mean this in a negative way, but I'm very confident at what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to brag about it. I'm just going to say, if I know it, I know it. If I don't, I don't.
Right.
Right. And I'm definitely a Patrick Henry guy. You give me liberty. If you can't give me my liberty, then just go ahead and kill me. Give me death.
I'm with you on that. I'm 100% with you.
And, you know, I said I was going to mention something. What did you say your first name was again?
Michael.
Hey, Mike, you need to get my number. I need to talk to you some more. We need to have some more conversations.
Yeah, and I have a TBI too, and I've been denied and everything, man. They said, and I have proven hitting the head in the military is knocked out. I had brain surgery, and they're like, you know, what the fuck? How do you, it's all proven. You know, it's. I mean, what are you gonna? How do you say no? You know, it's like, come on. Well, listen, I actually have an abnormality in my brain. I have a piece of my brain taken out of me, and I have scarring in there. And they're telling me, oh, that was PTSD, or that was you were born with it. Oh, I ran 3 marathons prior to going to the military, and I was born with it. Okay, right.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, mine was totally just in an accident that it messed me up. And I was going to do 20. I loved it. I mean, it just never worked out that way for me, but.
You know, and then karma, I've saved lives. I've saved several lives, literally, you know. And It's like, I don't think this is a karmic thing. So I don't know.
I'll tell you the truth about it, you know. I think what I think this is a direct, most of it is the direct result of the Patriot Act. It's a government program that's just got out of control.
The goulash.
Just Google the Patriot Act and see what it says.
You're right.
It talks about terrorist. Are you a terrorist?
Yeah, and also the NDAA. Mm-hmm. You know, the National Defense Authorization Act, another unconstitutional act.
Yeah. You know, and until we can come together as a group of people in a very positive way, nonviolent.
Yeah, petition the government as the Constitution says. Right.
I'm not trying to overthrow anything.
I agree with you.
I guarantee you one thing: you take 500,000 people and you start knocking on
lawmakers' doors.
Lawmakers' doors, and I can promise you one thing: they're going to stand up and they're going to listen. I'm also. I had spoken earlier this evening to Ella about this 2 people I know of that I've been following and I've researched, and they are truly not, the politicalization of what they research. They don't go for. They find the truth and what the law says about it, plain and simple. Best 2 investigative reporters probably of our lifetime. And it would be nice to have 2 people like that have worked together on different types of issues and have them investigate the TI phenomenon.
Yes,
I think. Listen, see if there's any more questions.
Before I go, I want to one more thing. Just before I go, real quick, I recommend every TI to read the book "Behold a Pale Horse" by William Cooper. It explains a lot of stuff that's going on now.
I've already done it.
Yeah.
Actually, I had it in I didn't, when I say read it, let me clarify that. He had the Pale Horse book before they took his life, you know.
I know that. He was murdered.
Yep, they murdered him. And just like they did Chuck Lautenberg.
Yes, anyway, I agree with you on that.
The Pale Horse, there was a video book of it, a speaking book.
Audio, right.
Audio book. I couldn't get it out. It was just absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your time, and continue your great work. Thank you, Ella. Have a good evening.
Thank you. We have time for a few more questions here, a couple more. I'm going to go to Shelley. I already unmuted you once. I'm going to go to Lonnie. Hold on. Hi, Lonnie.
Hi, Ella. Thank you very much. I was afraid I was going to miss out. And, Brian, I want to thank you. I agree with just about everything you've been saying. John Solomon's great. Carter's great. And we are way beyond 1984. When I read this thing, not a few decades, just a couple of decades after it was written, I had no idea we would end up here, where we are right now. But I grabbed the phone because when you mentioned OpScan, did you say Olympic Peninsula safety?
You're talking about, when I talked about OpScan, is, you know, one thing that I found, I've had a hard time when I Google OpScan. It's OPSCAN, OP and then the word scan, which stands for Olympic. It stands for Olympic Peninsula. Safety Communication Network.
Okay. I live on the Olympic Peninsula. That's why I grabbed the phone. I thought, I got to ask.
Well, that's the thing that got me. I thought, peninsula.
Yeah.
You know, okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense, but it's. I don't think that that's a term. You know how I come across that term?
Huh?
I came across that term one day. I went into a convenience store, and there was a group of police officers. Looked like they were state, local sheriffs, before I became a target, and I heard them talking about that term. Well, as I was telling that one gentleman, I've kept a journal of my life since I was 15. There's not been a day that I've not written something in it.
Yeah.
And I happened to go back and look. I was reading my journal one day, and I seen where the word op scam was, and I wrote up what those guys were talking, and they said what it was, and I remember etching that, or excuse me, writing that down, and I went home and I put it in my journal, and I wondered what it was, and so then I done some more research after I became a TI, and find out basically it's like what's the word I told Miss Ella there? I said it was like Amber Alert. This is more secretive than iPause. OpScam is a lot more secretive than iPause. They have special channels that nobody else can get on. They have, and they're funded some way that it's totally different, not through grants, but somebody gives them money. And I just listened to that conversation those policemen were having, how all that, I mean, I remember, and they didn't notice me, and I just listened to them. So that's where I got it at.
Okay. Well, what is interesting is I didn't hear a lot of what you said because I was punching *6 and the lady comes on and says, do this, do that. So I didn't hear your real explanation of it. So
that's
what
okay.
I'm wondering is this: when I first began to be targeted and all the way through, there was something to do with law enforcement and the local, the first responders and that sort of thing going on within my targeting. Okay.
I'm basically sort of like the same way, but it's a little bit different. And that's what makes this so complicated, because everybody has such a different take on how they are and aren't, and whether it's law enforcement or not. And, anyway, thank you for your question, hon.
We also have the Navy here, and I know that there are really good people in law enforcement, too. So, I don't want to imply that. I had one other thing I want to mention, too, real quickly, because this is something that came up. I'm a Christian, too, and Pastor Millicent Black sent me something. She's a very, very targeted individual who has started a church. And what she sent me today was a very long ago Billy Graham message, and it says, let Christ rule in your mind. That's the gist of it. I didn't write it down. I would have to hang up and try.
I've been a Christian since 1980.
Okay, good. That's great.
And I hope the way I carry myself, the way I speak, you'll never hear me other than I said that my brother said that one cuss word, what the heck, H-E-double-L was that. I did that as the emphasis on the situation, but I'm not a cusser. I'm not a drinker. I'm not a smoker. I'm just this. I guess how I would say it.
I believe you.
I'm that guy. I'm that guy crying out in the wilderness.
What I wanted to say was this particular message. He's talking about the technology, and he's talking about the technology that can invade your mind and actually take over your mind. And this is old. Millicent's trying to find it, as the date on it. But he talks about Life magazine. It was still going on. That was like 1970s. Helen Keller was still living, and his voice sounds very, very young in that. But his main thing is, he said it's not as important whether it can be done, but who would be in control of it? I mean, this guy was way ahead of where we are now.
Isn't that amazing? But didn't you just tell me though that was that like 1984?
Oh yeah, I read that book a long time ago.
What my point about it is, and exactly like you say, who would have thought? Who would, as they how they used to say it, who would have thunk it? But who would have thought that?
Exactly.
I mean, that we would be in today's society where we are. I tell you what, man, I got to tell you, I want to be a positive influence. I want to be one of those people can call day and night. I mean, how many times do you hear TIs that are just out there and they don't really feel like they have anybody to say anything to? They might sit in the house and look around. I don't feel that way. I'm able to occupy my mind, but I also know what that's like. And I want to be that person that if you want to call me at 3 o'clock in the morning because you're just afraid, please call me. Call me. Don't be afraid to call me.
Yeah.
Because if I can't do that, what's the Bible say about it? If you say you love God and you do it and you hate your brother, you're a liar and the truth's not in you.
That's true.
And I want the truth to be in me.
That's
true.
what
I want. That's what I want.
Well, I appreciate dedication for doing that. He is the way. He's the way out of this. He's the truth and he's the life. So thank you very much for mentioning his name.
Yes,
and I think that's a good place to end the call. It's about 8:15 now, and I thought that was a perfect spot. So, Brian,
yes,
I've really enjoyed getting to know you, and you are a good man, and I'm very picky about the people who come on here and share their stories.
I try to be very respectful.
Decent people. I like decent people. Some people demand I put them on. I'm like, well, the fact that you're demanding I do it is one thing.
I tell you, Ella, I was a boss for many years, and I had I don't know. I don't ever say anything derogatory. I don't. If I don't know something, I'm going to tell you I don't, and I'll research it, or I'll find out the answer, or maybe But I want these people to know that I remember what I felt like when I first got in it.
Me too. That's why
I'm not married, but call me if you feel like you can't go another step. Call me. I want to be there for them. So, thank you, Ella.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, Brian. So I'm just going to go ahead and give the late call number here, and it is. And don't forget, guys, Thursday you got to use the new phone number, which is
515.
Same bat time, same bat place, same bat ID, but different number. So it's 515-606-5187. That's my new number. And then let me give you the late call. Let's see. So that number, which I don't have memorized because my brain is mush, 605-562-0444. And the ID number is 125572. Wait a minute, 125472. My brain hurts. Does anybody know?
What number was that, Ella?
That's the late night call. That's the wild call.
What's that mean?
It's moderated differently. It's more open, and it's late, and so he's not there every second, kind of monitoring the call, so to speak. Although I haven't been on there, I don't know if it's his name.
But who is the gentleman?
His name is I can't believe Ryan. I really am tired. Yeah.
Yes, you are. Would you please give that number one more time?
Okay, so that number is 605-562-0444, and it's 125472. And I thank you guys very much and appreciate everybody, and I'll see you guys on Thursday on my new number. Thank you, Brian, again.
Yes,
bye, everybody.